is now showing us the back of the back of the car, saying, "My taillight. Do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God. Do you guys think I hit him?" That was your testimony at the time, correct?
Yes.
Can you pause? Do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yep, that's when we arrived at John's house.
Okay. And who's the person with the plaid red pants?
That is Jen.
And who's the person that's just rounding the back of the car in front?
That is Karen.
Okay, so this is about the Karen Reed trial. And so she said this was Jen McCabe right here. And then this right here is Karen Reed. And then the person on the stand is Carrie Roberts. Those are the three women who found John O'Keefe's body about 6 a.m. in the morning, January 29th, 2022.
What is the car in front?
That's Karen's SUV.
That's the Lexus SUV.
Yes, it is.
Behind that Lexus SUV, Ms. Roberts, is there another car?
That's my car.
And who's getting out of that car?
I am.
Okay. And this is the point that you were describing in your, at least in the grand jury testimony at that time.
Yes.
This is the time that you're describing.
That I thought it was when we walked in.
This is the time that you were describing, right? When you arrive at the scene.
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, arrive at One Meadows.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play this through. You saw the interaction between all three of you and the vehicles, correct?
Yep.
At any point, did anybody stop and take a look at the tail light or the rear end of the car?
Not when we were entering the house like I thought, but when we came out.
Okay. And there's no video of that?
I'm sorry?
There's no video of that?
No, I don't believe so.
Right. So the video that does exist describes nearly exactly the time that you testified that y'all stopped at the back of the taillight and Karen said, "Look, my taillight's broken. Oh my God, do you think I hit it?"
Correct.
Right? Okay. And that obviously was incorrect. Unquote. Correct?
Okay, so let's break down what we know so far. We'll just do a quick. Okay, so this is about Karen Reed possibly hitting John O'Keefe. Karen Reed and John O'Keefe are boyfriend and girlfriend. John O'Keefe is a Boston police officer. He was 46 years of age, and he was killed on January 29th, 2022. Now, Karen Reed, she is 42 or 41 at the time, 45 right now. So, 41-year-old dating 46-year-old Karen Reed had dropped John O'Keefe off at Brian Albert's house. And the prosecutors allege that after Karen Reed dropped John O'Keefe at Brian Albert's house at 34 Fairview Road, she hits him. She hits him with her SUV, and then she drives off. Now, the defense team, Karen Reed, says that it looks like to them the alternative theory is that people in or around Brian Albert's house had beat him up and had killed him. So, John O'Keefe's house is at One Meadows. Brian Albert's house is 34 Fairview Road. And John O'Keefe had been attacked. He had 2 black eyes, some lacerations on his face, and his right arm was hit. And then he's going to die in the snow at sub-zero temperatures. He died alone in the dark. He froze to death. So whereas the defense of Karen Reed says that he looked like he was beaten and attacked by a dog and dumped and then froze to death, both of them say that he had died of hypothermia. So there's some things that both sides agree on. Both of them agreed that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had went to 2 bars, C.F. McCarthy's and Waterfall Bar and Grill. They both went out for a night of drinking, They left the second bar after midnight. And then they drive to Brian Albert's house. Where they disagree is right after that. So let's listen to Carrie Roberts' testimony. Remember, Jen McCabe, Karen Reed, and Carrie Roberts, 3 women, all find John O'Keefe's body. Because Karen Reed is going to go home that night, go to sleep. She's going to wake up. She's worried that he didn't come home. And then she had contacted 2 of her friends, or associates, Jennifer McCabe, and Carrie Roberts to go look for him. And then they're going to drive to Brian Albert's house and they're going to find him there in the snow.
Correct.
You will agree, at least for that purpose, you painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that.
The answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, and I'm a trick question. What you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard her.
Oh, no.
To Google anything, did you?
I did not.
And yet, that's what you testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
And the reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement, was because someone told you to say it, correct? Object.
Is that? I'm going to let her answer. Nobody told me to say it. I knew it happened at that time.
How did you
which
know
is why
it
I said it.
How did you know it happened, Miss Roberts, if no one told you it happened?
Because we wrote a timeline. We already spoke about that.
So the timeline that Jennifer McCabe helped you with, that influenced your testimony in front of the grand jury, correct? Obviously.
I was telling what happened in the back of the cruiser.
The timeline you can answer.
So when you ask a question, let her answer, okay?
The timeline you wrote, with Jennifer McCabe's help, it influenced your testimony to testify in front of the grand jurors to a statement that you never heard, correct?
Yes.
You were later asked about that statement in another investigation. By another investigator or set of investigators, correct?
I don't know.
Were you interviewed by a different law enforcement agency, a separate law enforcement agency from?
Okay, so there's been much ado about her lie right there. She admits that she told an untruth and she said it wasn't an intentional lie, but what Carrie Roberts just admitted to was that she went to a grand jury because there was a first trial, right? This is the second trial. The first trial had ended in a hung jury. So the first trial was inconclusive. And what we just listened to right now is Carrie Roberts now admitting that she told, we'll say an untruth, we'll be generous to her. She had lied to the grand jury. She told an untruth. And what was the untruth? The untruth was about whether or not Jennifer McCabe had Googled how long to die in the cold. So she had Google searched how long to die in the cold. This was found on Jen McCabe's phone. And so there's a discrepancy. Some people are saying that she had typed in how long to die in the cold at 6:04 a.m. or was it at 2:27 a.m.? This matters because these aren't the bestest of friends. I want to say Jim McCabe knows Brian Albert. Brian Albert is a colleague of John O'Keefe. He's also a Boston police officer. Brian Albert also has a brother on the Canton Select Board who owns a pizza shop. So Brian Albert's brother is Chris Albert, and then Brian Albert also is related to a Kevin Albert, who's a detective with the Canton Police. And so, this is Carrie Roberts. She had previously talked to a grand jury, and she had said to the grand jury that Jen McCabe had Google searched how long to die in the cold around the same time that they found the body, around 6:04 a.m. and not 2:27 a.m. And so this is important because if, she typed how long does it take to die in the cold when they find the body, well, then she found the body, just like, Karen Reed had said. They went over to the house, they found the body, and then she typed in how long does it take to die in the cold to see if he had, died in the cold, because he had been in the cold all night. Had she have Google searched that at 2:27 in the morning, well, that would paint up a different picture. That would mean that Jennifer McCabe had known or had suspected that somebody had froze to death at 2:27, 4 hours before they had, theoretically, allegedly found the body. Because if we go along with what they're saying, Karen Reed goes to bed not knowing what had happened. They had a turbulent relationship. They had these text messages, and we'll go through those text messages or look at a couple of them. But they had a turbulent relationship. The text messages indicate that they just keep going back and forth, and then eventually they agree to go out for some drinks that night. So it seems very plausible that Karen Reed could have got drunk. They had an argument. She goes to drop him off at Brian Albert's house. She drives away. Right before they drive away, they got into an argument. She's drunk, or drunkish, not 100% state of mind. They get into an argument, and either she negligently drives out in a huff, or she intentionally hits him and then drives away. What the defense is saying is also a possibility too. The guy's dead. Somebody killed him. He's got all these, 2 black eyes and lacerations, and let's say the blunt force. There was evidence of blunt force, but that somebody at Brian Albert's house had done it. And that because of their connections with the police, there's a big police cover-up. Now, there was 11 witness statements that said that John O'Keefe never entered into Brian Albert's house. He never went into the home. It says 11 witness statements. There's also a broken taillight. That's been a big, call celebre. Broken taillight pieces were found next to John O'Keefe's body that had John O'Keefe's blood on them. And it was Karen Reed's taillight. And so what we just heard now was that Carrie Roberts had said that at the grand jury, she said that Jennifer McCabe had Google searched how long to die in the cold at 6:04 a.m. when those 3 women had found his body at 6:04 a.m. and not at 2:27 a.m. like the defense is saying. So prior to this, she was talking about timeline, and so when they were getting together, Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts were talking about the timeline of events. They were drawing up a timeline, and so therefore they were influencing each other's memories. And so even though I could see it going both ways, I could see that Carrie Roberts, she didn't intentionally say that she had heard it or saw, her do it. She didn't watch Jennifer McCabe Google search how long does it take to die in the cold. But Jennifer McCabe had told her that she had searched it then, and so therefore she testified. It would seem weird to me that she's trying to cover up for Jennifer McCabe, but that could be a possibility as well. So I think that there's actually too much to do. The only reason why this is explosive is because she's admitting that the thing that she had said at the grand jury wasn't 100% true, and then once a liar, always a liar. This wasn't like a little white lie. This, if you're to believe Carrie Roberts, then it was just, instead of her testifying to something she had known by her personal knowledge, she actually testified that it's something she had heard Jennifer McCabe tell her and she believed to be true. And she had testified in a way that it made it seem like it was her personal knowledge instead of her saying that it was Jim McCabe that had said that she had Google searched it, while they were waiting for the paramedics to come. So I could see all that happening, and it just seems like there's way too much into this, but it's just, she admits that she said something that at the grand jury that she had not said. Let's just take a look at this for a second.
I did. That was less than 3 months after you brought Karen Reed to the hospital, didn't you?
Yeah.
And your memory of what happened at the hospital was very good in April of 2022, right?
As good as today?
Your memory in April of 2022 was very good, wasn't it?
It was very good as it is today.
Okay, so you want to add the as it is today, despite the fact that you weren't asked that question. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right. When questioned by Mr. Lally at the grand jury, you were asked the following question. So what, if any, interaction did you have with her, meaning Ms. Reed, at the hospital once you were there? You remember that question, right?
I do.
And your answer was, so we, after that, I helped escort her down to, they call it the psych hallway, where they have rooms set up for psychiatric patients for their evaluation.
Okay, so this cross-examination isn't particularly enlightening. I just thought it was interesting how the guy's like talking down to him like a total asshole. He's talking to him like a total asshole. And so I thought that was interesting. Let's take a look at these text messages. Basically, she keeps texting, is like, is it over? Is it not over? And should we take a look at actually the pictures
The
of these
reason
guys?
I went to Nuvia in the first place
Why
is
did
that
you
I
go
was
to
so
Nuvia?
tired of dealing with missing teeth.
Massachusetts for the Karen Reed retrial. This has
Identification, please.
Okay.
Exhibit A, identification.
Thank you.
Second folder.
Yes, the raw data extraction of Jen McCabe's cell phone that I created.
Thank you, sir.
Stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, tell me if you're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this. 2:25, 18 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, nope. 2:25, 33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that? 2:26:03 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:28:40 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected.
Mr. Greer, can you explain to us the difference between not answered and rejected?
Yes, so if the call is not answered, that means the call rang out and goes to voicemail. If the call is rejected, that is someone actively hitting the send to voicemail button to disable the call, to stop it from ringing. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, kids are here, not in the mood to talk. 2:29:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into it anymore. That's fine, but I don't want to keep trying, and you keep treating me like this. 2:29:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning, and you whack me in the face with a pillow.
I mean, was he playfully doing that, or did he, do it real hard, Because it seems like Karen Reed keeps texting him and just kind of saying, what's going on, I'm really worried, I want us to be together, I want us to be happy, I don't know what's going on between us.
2:29:59 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, last night you're basically like, yeah, what about when we talk about the future? So why don't you just admit you're not into so much anymore? 2:23 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not how it went down, but okay. 2:26 p.m. on the 28th.
So I want to mention that, the time, this is, what he said, 2:30 p.m. So this is before they go drinking, right? This is before they go drinking the night before he was killed. So when Karen Reed finds John O'Keefe's body, they drive up to Brian Albert's house. They were going to go to his house and then somebody else's house. They go to Brian Albert's house first. She had mentioned something about the taillight was broken, and then she had floated the idea previously. Well, Karen Reed had exited the car, and she immediately sees a mound of snow and saying, there he is, that she found John O'Keefe, and then she tries to give him CPR. There's also two other things that was just interesting that I wrote down here. They found pieces of a cocktail glass next to John O'Keefe's body, and they also found a shoe that was buried in the snow. There's also something about Turtle Boy. There's been several documentaries that have been made about this. There have been several documentaries, and then there was some podcasts, and then there was a guy, a citizen journalist, who got arrested named Turtle Boy. And so maybe we could take a look at that in a minute.
From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please admit your head is out of the game with us? 2:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently. 2:28 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:47 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected.
This is the one who helps everyone stay safe. An unsung hero in a building.
John O'Keefe to the defendant, OMG, stop calling. 2:54 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then why would you start with me this morning? 2:58 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you're setting me up to fail. 2:05 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you started a number of fights from your end. 2:26 p.m. on the 28th. And John O'Keefe to the defendant, I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again.
I remember there's this makes me think of men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And the book had said that men go into their cave, not for any particular reason, but just to figure out life for themselves. So they'll deliberate with themselves before they come to a conclusion, whereas women are better at talking to others and concluding around other people. And so when a man goes into his cave, she could be freaking out thinking that there's something wrong, and then she just keeps pressing and pressing until he's kind of like, what is, your problem? Because later on he's going to agree to go out drinking with her, and they said to all appearances it looked like they were happy. There was some banter, there was some back and forth banter that, could be perceived as either just just couple stuff or maybe an underlying problem. So that's what it feels like it's happening right here, but then maybe he was trying to, I'm not for sure if this is really working out or not.
2:31 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into this anymore. 2:41 p.m.
Just tell me, is it over or is it not over, okay? Just tell me. And he's like, I don't want to say it's over because I don't feel like it's over, but I know you're annoying the hell out of me right now, and that's not helping your case out. So the text messages keep on going like that. Let's just watch a couple
on
more.
The 28th. For John O'Keefe to the defendant, not into fighting all the time, correct. 2:34:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if you tell me you're interested in someone else, you will never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world. 2:34:11 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, he sends an emoji. 2:34:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then stop starting with me. 2:34:20 p.m. on the 28th. 2:34:29 p.m. The defendant calls John. He rejects the call. John O'Keefe to Karen, the defendant. I'm not answering. Stop calling. 2:34:42 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please answer after how you treated me earlier? 2:34:43 p.m. on the 28th. 2:34:54 p.m.
All right, so we get the picture there. Now this is Jennifer McCabe. So again, 3 women find John O'Keefe's body, and it was Jennifer McCabe, Karen Reed, and Carrie Robertson. This is Jennifer McCabe. Nothing particularly revealing here, but we get to see what Jennifer McCabe looks like. And
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCabe, I want to go back very briefly to something you said just before we broke, and that was in respect of the statements that you attribute to my client out of the scene. You said, well, there was an officer possibly asking questions, or it could have been a female EMT, and I wasn't answering questions about that, correct? Hence, you didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Can you be clear on your question?
Let me rephrase that. Before we broke a few minutes ago, you had said, the reason I didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, is because I was never asked. And the subject never came up about what an officer asked her when she declared that. So I just didn't offer it. And then you said, or it could have been an EMT.
Yes, I'm unclear who was there.
Isn't it true that at the grand jury, the question that was posed to you, and this is counsel page 208 of the grand jury, the question that was posed to you is, quote, so what happens next with yourself, Ms. Roberts, and Ms. Reed? And your answer was, so there are different, police officers getting statements from us. At one point, I'm standing with Ms. Reed, and she's saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And there was, I believe, an EMT, a female, standing right next to me and listening to her yelling, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Was pretty much non-stop. Remember that testimony?
I do.
So in point of fact, you were answering the direct question about what happened in front of the police officer and the EMT, correct?
There were multiple police officers and multiple EMTs present.
So now this is another police officer and a different EMT.
okay, I don't even know where he's going at with that. Do we want to take a look at this? Yeah, we'll take a look at this.
My Spectrum services help simplify my day, and it helps our business just run really smoothly. Our family just blew $600 on a calendar, and it's the best decision we ever made.
Here comes the beginning of the end.
Right on this corner piece, I hit about right here. But if I would have gotten a higher hit, it might not have busted it at all. It would have cracked hard 2021.
So somebody just did some sort of experiment. There's some video where there's a broken taillight, and
I have never had a dedicated video about Karen Reed's taillight, and I think it's time that we talk about it.
I believe that the evidence shows that she didn't hit him. I've said in the past that his injuries are not consistent with being hit by a vehicle. And by the way, the Lexus taillight breaking, coming in contact with a human being and not a hard surface, makes no sense.
If you don't know, this is what they're trying to say was the damage to Karen Reed's Lexus SUV after, quote-unquote, running over John O'Keefe, her Boston police officer boyfriend. If any of you know anything about bodies, we already know that this damage that would be caused onto a body would be significant. And the fact that he